Greetings, Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Titan Law. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today, I'm in conversation with the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority Commissioner General, Faith Mazani. Commissioner General Faith Mazani, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you very much, Trevor. It's such a pleasure to be here.
You have been in the hot seat now for almost 2 years.
Yes.
How is the past 2 years been to you? Is it anything that you expected? Big surprises, ups and downs? What has it been like for the past 2 years?
Okay, it has been a very exciting 2 years. Having been part of ZIMRA before and gone through and learned quite a lot from the region and with my experience, I came back excited to give back to the country and to give back to my organization that I was part of creating. And yes, I have a number of things that I've managed to introduce, and just connecting back to the stuff that I left. And sharing what I learned has been quite exciting. But like you're saying, there have been some surprises.
Right.
I came back to the country 10 years on, in the new dispensation, different things, a different environment, and that has presented quite a number of challenges. But I would like to say these have actually been instrumental in me recognizing the value of what I can give. I wouldn't have wanted to come to the organization that I left. And just connecting to the staff and sharing has been quite...
What have been the biggest surprises for you?
Of course, the generation that I was with in 2007 has almost disappeared.
Right.
And it feels sort of lonely. I came back when I think one or two of the executive managers that I left were still there. And it was a bit challenging to then reconnect to the vision that we had in 2001 and walking the journey with the people that I actually worked with when I left. And also just the economic challenges. Yes, I knew the country was going through quite a lot of difficulties economically. But from a revenue administration point of view, I never thought that would present so much in terms of trying to lift up the compliance levels and connecting to the taxpayers and their agents. So yeah, I left a revenue authority at a time when I felt I had gained so much, and I was going to give out to the region and to the countries that I worked with. And I was always proud to say, this is what we were doing at ZIMRA, and I am here to, to share it with you. But coming back and finding in some areas we've gone back. For me, that was the biggest shock and frustration to a certain extent.
Which areas did you find we'd gone back?
The automation. Our automation levels, I think because we have been having all these forex challenges, I expected ZIMRA to have moved some steps quite ahead. And I came back, there are areas that I'm actually having to go back and really start afresh. And it's because the organization has not been able to keep up because of challenges in forex and even just trying to maintain the systems that we were instrumental in putting in place.
I know the automation is a big part of what you want to do and you're currently engaged with, so we'll get back to that later on. But right now, I just wanted us to take a tour of the places that you've been to. You've worked for the South African Revenue Services as a senior manager. You've worked for Deloitte & Touche in Zimbabwe. You've worked for the Swaziland Revenue Authority as a commissioner for VAT. That's a wealth of experience around the region. But you've also worked as a consultant and advisor to the IMF. So coming back, what have been the learnings from the journey that you've taken across the region as far as Ghana?
Okay, I think that's, just articulating the journey and walking the steps. I would like to take you through my experiences. Like I said, we had made some reasonable steps in automation. But when I left and joined the South African Revenue Service, they were miles ahead in automation. It's like they just had SOPs, as they called them. And I was there as an administrator, as a commissioner, and I felt I was at a policy level. But as a foreigner, I had to take a slightly lower position deep in operations. And they were working with automated processes, and I found myself lost. But I had to quickly learn, because I was then put in the service area where I had to interact with the taxpayers. The good thing that I found quite interesting is that as an administration, SARS was moving so far ahead, and yet the taxpayers, because the region that I was responsible for was Gauteng South, which covers Soweto. And people in Soweto were not that, familiar with automation. So I was experiencing the divide, whereas areas like Rudeport, where the businesses were based, were way ahead, so they could relate. So I was experiencing the two worlds.
Two worlds, yeah.
Yeah, and it made me, because I was coming in and trying to fit, it made me equipped to then make it clear to the policymakers that, I'm trying to service the Soweto people. Please don't rush too fast. And at times it was difficult with an organization that was trying to move that fast. And the 3 years that I stayed at SARS made me ready to tap onto the experience that I'd gained at ZIMRA and relate to the technology that SARS had introduced. And when I went to Swaziland, trying to create a revenue authority, I could say, okay, yes, I learned this in Zimbabwe, but we can do it better this way and move towards automation, towards the new administrative tools. And when I went to Ghana, I was now ready. But it was also a surprise, because I was at an advisory level. You hear of countries like Nigeria and Ghana,
right,
and you think they are way ahead of us. But I found, surprisingly, there are areas where I was actually, Zimbabwe was ahead, South Africa had a lot for us to learn, Swaziland, because of the things that I had introduced, could also give to Ghana. So I started using some of the experience and actually invited some of the officers that I was working with, like one of my directors, to come and give technical assistance. So it actually made me see the African experience in revenue administration from a much broader perspective. And I think these are the experiences that I'm learning. And I think I'm more equipped to relate to the issues and the challenges that we as Zimbabwe are facing.
So you come back home, you are appointed Commissioner General February 28, 2018, and you put together a 5-year strategy. Do you want to talk to us about that 5-year strategy?
Okay. Thanks very much, Trevor. I think my coming in was, it looks like it was timed, because I came at a time when the previous strategic plan, 2014 to 2018, was coming to an end. And I also came in, like I said, when the new dispensation had just come in, when the Vision 2030 and the Transitional Stabilization Program was being rolled out. So our focus was on how to support the Vision 2030. The Transitional Stabilization had 5 pillars, but we chose 3.
Okay.
These are closing fiscal leakages, ensuring fiscal balance, and facilitation of ease of doing business, which where we are responsible for facilitation of trade. So the strategic plan that we developed is actually focusing on ensuring, in terms of domestic resource mobilization, that Zimbabwe, through its own resources, is able to meet its obligations. Of course, we still have the foreign currency challenges, but I think my desire, as I was working with other countries outside, is that we know the cost of borrowing, and where we can, let's mobilize our own resources, but also ensure that we improve our compliance, which is a major challenge, because we seem to be still having the historic challenges where people don't want to voluntarily contribute to tax. Whenever somebody is importing something, they want to look for somebody to, even within ZIMRA or outside ZIMRA, political name. Can you help me? How can I avoid this? That's the kind of compliance culture that we have.
So we don't have a compliance culture to tax issues?
Yes, we don't have. Yes, they are big companies, foreign companies, that because they have so much to lose, they are not just looking at Zimbabwean environment, but they have obligations in their countries of origin, and they know the consequences. But in Zimbabwe, we don't have that culture of we need to pay to build our own country. So that was our biggest focus area in our strategic plan. But instead of using enforcement, which we are used to, we garnish your account, we prosecute you or whatever, we then introduced concepts that are being introduced in revenue administration to encourage voluntary compliance. Yes, tax can never be voluntary because there is the law, but at least somebody knows that I've got an obligation. And also a consciousness that this money is for my advantage. I need services and I need to pay for them. So we used strategies like cooperative compliance. And if you remember, when I came, I started engaging with the accounting firms, with the big companies. We paid particular attention to certain sectors. And this is going to be the culture, that's the approach that we're using. But we are also coming in when the country is trying to improve on its ease of doing business rating. And I'm happy that we see slowly, because we are a part of the bigger ease of doing business strategy for the country, in terms of us actually facilitating trade, processing of exports, and ensuring that registration of taxpayers is as easy as possible. We realize that we have to work with other stakeholders, but we have a big part to play. So our strategic plan is going to focus on those three pillars, but coming down to the actual operations and our processes, we want to improve the level of service that we offer to our taxpayers.
Right.
We realize that automation is key, and this is where we are coming in now, with improving our automated processes, making our services available to our taxpayers, trying to make coming to us as not just the option, but to ensure that we deliver the services wherever taxpayers are. For the individual taxpayers, it's going to be very difficult because not many of us, yes, we do have our phones. Yeah, but not many people have computers to really do their books and records. But you may be aware that we are one of the few countries that started on the fiscalization program.
Yeah.
What that was supposed to have done for us is to ensure that we have the data, we analyze and process it, and we already have the information, and we have e-services that are available to our taxpayers so that they can just capture the information and do their returns. From a customs perspective, we've already achieved quite a lot. with our SCUDA system, in that our taxpayers can do their entries wherever they are. They can just access the system and log in through their offices wherever they are, and they can do their entries. And one of the things that we have is we have already, ahead of other African countries, particularly in this region, we already have the pre-clearance.
Right.
Where before the consignment comes, they can already do the pre-clearance, and it can come to our system and it can be processed. So these are initiatives that we are promoting. But okay.
So this is part of the African Development Bank sponsored revenue management system that you're rolling out. Is it complete? Is there still more work to be done?
Okay, we have been automated for quite some time.
Right.
I think since we introduced VAT in 2004.
Right.
But we started automating in 2003 in preparation for VAT. And we have used our automated systems for some time for our domestic taxes, and on the custom side, we've been using the SCUDA system.
Right.
The new system that we are using, that we are bringing in with the African Development Bank funding, is actually for our domestic taxes. We automated our tax revenue management through the development of a system under our current system that we introduced in 2003. And it also helped us in the automation of our enterprise resource management, which covers personnel management, procurement, administration, and others. But in terms of revenue management, when we developed, it was not that designed to manage revenue, tax administration. Because when we are administering tax, we need to know the taxpayer. Right. We need to know the tax period. We need to know which tax type. So those are the basic principles that we needed to bring on board. Whereas for our procurement, for our personnel management, these are generic systems. So we've had a number of challenges on the tax revenue management. The African Development Bank system that we received funding for is to buy a system that focuses on tax revenue management.
All right.
Looking at those three focus areas. So it's not yet in place.
Okay.
The funding is coming so that we can procure that system. We still have to go through the tendering, but it's mainly looking at the tax revenue management. We will retain the other enterprise resource management systems with the current systems that we have. So, but the good thing about that system is that it will then integrate and interface with not only our SCUDA system on the customs side, where we gather information from imports and exports and manage our taxes together, but also through our enterprise resource management, we can know who the compliance of our suppliers. We can also link for performance management with our HR systems, but also better still, we will link with our stakeholders like the Minister of Finance, the Reserve Bank, stakeholders like the Registrar General to know the tax base, banks and others. And this is what we are focusing on, and this is the strength of the system that we are looking at procuring.
Technology can help with compliance. What are your strategies as far as inculcating a culture of tax compliance?
Okay. Inculcating a compliance culture comes from the support and the service that we give to our taxpayers. Yes, taxpayers don't comply because they don't know. Taxpayers comply because they don't want to. Taxpayers don't comply because it's difficult for them to do that. So technology will help us with providing information to our taxpayers, to educate them. Our website is going to be advanced, and we are going to avail information. When taxpayers want to reach us to look at their accounts and their statements, they can go onto the system without coming. So we are making it easy. But also for those who don't want to, we have information. If you procure something, we can get that information. If you invest your income,
third-party
information, yes. But also for those that find it difficult, we can make it easy. So in terms of our compliance focus, we are looking at what we call a compliance pyramid, where we look at the segments of our taxpayers and we design strategies to address the compliance challenges with each, from education and service to enforcement, where we are actually going to be looking at prosecuting, like we're doing, those that have not complied even when they know that they are supposed to.
So, Commissioner, one of the things in your pillars for your strategic plan is focus on people. And you say, because you realize that you cannot transform the organization without transforming the people. Talk to us about that.
Yes, Trevor. Actually, I came up with this 4 Ps strategy just as I was preparing and trying to reflect back. I think naturally I have a concern on the people. And yes, I knew I needed to really motivate the staff. I'm a Methodist preacher. I have been a youth pastor. I connect to the people and want to understand what their needs are. And when I was looking at all the areas that needed attention, I decided deliberately to start with the people. And because of where we were, like we have discussed, the processes were not really up to the level that I expected. So they became the second P. And the I had learned a lot about project management, and I wanted it to be one of them. And my focus on the people was really because I wanted to get the people understand my vision. So I came up with the Ps. But also because coming from this difficult environment where there was a salary freeze, we have staff working in the border posts where the environment is so difficult. By the nature of our work, we have people that are having to move away from their families. I saw there was quite a mammoth task for me to ensure that.
What were the key challenges there as far as the people are concerned?
Of course, I came when the organization had gone for, was it 5 years without any salary increments because of the environment. And also, it was at a time when we just had a very painful forensic audit that had resulted in a number of the staff, particularly at executive level, leaving. There was a lot of fear, which made decision-making very difficult. So, because people were saying, okay, if I do this, will I be safe? And because the processes were also not very clear, people then were safer not doing anything. But that affected the taxpayers that we wanted to serve. So I needed to motivate, give confidence to the staff. And our industrial relations climate was at its lowest, and it has been the most difficult to work on. So there were so many things, I would say. Like I said, I did a tour of the border posts, of the stations, and I saw some of the projects that I left of staff housing. I left when I was Commissioner Projects and Planning in 2007. It still not been completed because there was no budget support for them. And where people were sleeping or staying, they couldn't bring their stuff. So there was quite a lot of issues that I needed to focus on. And
they say that wounded people wound others.
yes.
And I think what the public got to experience in terms of interfacing with ZIMRA was that woundedness, being tax officials lashing out at the public, and instances of corruption and so forth. Was that your experience?
Yes, actually, I was going to come to the issue of corruption. I realized the challenge that we face as ZIMRA to fight corruption. and it's one of the things that I decided I was going to take head on. But it was because in the country, it became the way of doing business.
Subculture.
Okay.
Way culture.
A subculture. So everybody was looking for a way of reducing their obligations. So and in an environment where the remuneration was not that high, our staff were actually enticed, and the issue of corruption became a big challenge, and it still is, because in the country, I think now with the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission efforts coming to the public arena, you know the number of things that are happening, and what exposes ZIMRA on the corruption side is that's where the money is.
Okay.
People either want to reduce their obligations
Tax
for tax or
yeah.
customs, and they offer money, and the officer who is there can't build a house for their family. They're offered, can't have a car like everybody else. They are tempted. So that then made corruption a big issue within ZIMRA. But like I said, closing revenue leakages became one of our top focus areas under the TSP, or the Transitional Stabilization Program, because this is an issue that the country has decided to take on head on. And from the president to talk to whoever in the government, and those who are really serious in security are actually talking about fighting corruption. And for us as ZIMRA, we had to take the front seat and fight it hard, but we had to start internally. And this
how are you happy with the internal fight against corruption? Are you winning it?
It's very difficult to win when you are actually facing it from outside. Why I'm saying facing it from outside is, yes, we have had cases of our officers who have committed fraud, and they wanted to actually take advantage of our systems and processes, weak systems and processes. But it's a fight that we will have to hold hands with others outside ZIMRA. We can't fight it on our own, because we have introduced lifestyle audits,
right,
which ask, okay, we know you earn so much. Tell us how much you have in terms of your assets. Show us your bank account so that we can see where your money is coming from besides where it is. So officers and managers have to make an asset declaration, and then we follow through and do the lifestyle audits. But then this then reveals the things that are coming from outside, and most of it is coming from bribes that are being paid to facilitate others. It becomes a criminal issue. We address corruption from ZIMRA through those lifestyle audits and other, the use of our code of conduct. But you find there's criminality. We can't prosecute that person. They go for prosecution. We are working with the police. We are working with the judges. We are working with the outside. And this is where it becomes difficult, because we are in an environment where corruption has sort of permeated, and we're dealing with syndicates and others.
But you have had senior members prosecuted,
yes,
following lifestyle audits where they couldn't justify some of the wealth that they have. Do you want to highlight some of those key cases that you've gone through?
Yes. We do report in our quarterly reports. We do report on the statistics. I would not want to go through the names, but yes, some of them have been in the papers. We had officers that were involved in fraud, trying to intercept money that they had actually prepared systems to divert to their accounts, which was taking advantage of the loopholes in the system. But we have had officers at Beitbridge who have been working in cahoots with other stakeholders and have had amassed quite a lot of wealth. So what we have done, and quite a number, you are aware also that we started at the end of last year, around September, this project on checking on the motor vehicle importations. This is big, and this
is big. How big is it?
Yes, what we are realizing is because the registration of motor vehicles involves capturing the import information on our ASCUDA system, taking it through our domestic tax system, and then printing a customs clearance certificate to go and register with CVR, which is an outside organization. And this was happening. And we started in Plumtree. We have had, I think we are up to about 36 officers that have been implicated in that. But it's not just our officers. They were doing
members of the public, of course.
Yeah, with members of the public. But even as we had started, we worked with the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission and the police. We have had to prosecute some of those members of your staff, public, at the Beitbridge water post, where we took that campaign. There were people that were illegally doing clearing agency business, unregistered, and they were processing importations for the public. And we would want the public to know that either they can do it for themselves, or they should use registered and licensed clearing agents, so that they are not exposed to these syndicates. So it's quite big in the sense that it involves a whole network.
Are you on top of it, or you're still?
We are. It's a project that we started in September, like I said.
Okay.
With we identified in the phase 1 over just 6 months, January to June 2019. We identified about 433 cars that we put in the papers, but we have now expanded that.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, we then checked our system after the project started. We see there are signs that the modus operandi that was used is not showing as much, but we are intending to go back.
Any values related to?
We have values in terms of the number of cars, like I said, that we are still recovering.
Not the quantum in terms of the prejudice.
Not the quantum in terms of prejudice, but yeah, it's in millions.
Okay.
I know we gave a figure of about 12 million, but it has gone up.
This is US dollars?
US dollars, yes, because cars are duty paid in US dollars. So it's big, and it's showing the weaknesses and the level of corruption internally and outside. So internally, like I said, we have officers that we are dismissing, but they are also being prosecuted. We are also doing lifestyle audits to identify the properties that they acquired, and it's good that we have the law on our side, which allows us to confiscate proceeds of crime. So but that has to be done through the National Prosecuting Authority, and we have submitted that for recovery.
Is the Whistleblower project working? Is it helping you in this regard?
The Whistleblower project is working.
Okay.
And we have identified quite a lot of revenue. I would not be able to give the figures. It started quite some time. We have had so many people coming up, and we have processed those cases, and it's because of the 10% that the informer gets. Yes, we are getting quite a lot of information. We also have our normal hotline where unidentified, you say, I know of this happening. That one is not in our hands, because it is also there to give information about the internal staff, but also about the public. So it is being managed outside through an accounting firm who give information to the ministry, to the minister and PS, as well as the board chair. They analyze the information and they give us to audit or investigate, and then we give the results back for them to give back. The whistleblower, yes, is giving us quite some information, and we've recovered quite some revenues. But the challenge is our procedures were not that developed, very manual, and as a result, we found ourselves sitting with cases where maybe because, well, first of all, audits were taking long because we have to verify this information we are going to give somebody 10%. So we can't just say we've recovered so much. We only give the 10% of the amount relating to recovered that is actually paid, but relating to the information, specific information that you have supplied.
Okay.
Because you might have supplied information to us on a case that we are working on or that has been. But if you give us specific information that is not in our custody, then we give that. And that audit takes quite some time. And we are receiving quite a number of cases. But because we also want to protect the whistleblower, it is the information and investigations is limited to quite a few officers, because we don't want this information to then go to everybody. We never know. And this exposes our whistleblowers. The one big task on us, on the whistleblower, is to protect the informer.
Sure.
So we have to protect it.
All right.
Our procedures were not that advanced, but we are happy that the law has been amended to give us a bit more direction and clarity, and we are now doing the regulations to make it clear and to safeguard the information.
You were owed by the public huge amounts of money, 4 billion in taxes, and you are in the courts on both sides. You're being sued by the taxpayers, but you're also suing the taxpayers to recover money that's owed. Are you making any progress in terms of recovering what is owed to the fiscals?
Okay. I think our debt position needs for us to understand what is happening. Yes, we do have the debt of 4.6 billion actually. What we did is to analyze that debt, who owes us, and for how long we've aged that debt. Some of it is owed by companies that have been liquidated.
Okay.
So we've had to write off. But we don't have the powers to write off. We have to submit to the ministry. And in terms of the Public Finance Management Act, we have to follow specific procedures. So we have identified what we are calling uncollectible debt, which is an amount of about 1.6 billion.
Of the 4.6.
Of the 4 billion.
Okay.
And then some of it is still owed, but the ministry has changed the law. So it's no longer collectible because it's no longer due. We've identified that. Some of it came through the recent legislation. The minister's statement made that announcement, and the law has now been amended. And we are now working with the taxpayers to write off that, to cancel that. Then remains the amount that we know this is due.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily make it collectible, because if you ask somebody for 400 million now, together with their current obligation, it will be very difficult for them. So we are going into terms with the taxpayers. So all the 4.6 billion, yes, is assessed debt, but we have had to take the effort to analyze and say how much can we collect. That which has to be written off, we've submitted to the ministry for write-off. And they have the discretion to write off.
So as we sit here, how much is collectible of the 4.6 billion?
Collectible debt is around 2.6 billion.
Okay.
But like I said, yes, we can say Trevor owes us, but Trevor is saying I'm struggling. So we have
I don't have capacity.
I don't have capacity to pay it because I need to meet the current obligations. So what we are doing is, please try and keep your current obligations current, and then we work on terms for the legacy debt. And it involves interest, it involves penalties, and we then agree on how that is going to be paid.
Did the tax amnesty help in terms of compliance issues, in terms of changing the culture, and in terms of you being able to receive what is owed to the fiscus?
Okay, tax amnesties in terms of revenue administrations, yes, are strategies that are used, but you have to ask yourself, what do you want to achieve with a tax amnesty? We had a tax amnesty in 2015, and it was at a time when things were hard. So it didn't, and like you said, the relationship between the taxpayer and ZIMRA was very strained, and not many came forward, because some were saying, if I then go, then I'm exposing myself and ZIMRA will come after me.
Right.
So they didn't come that much. The 2019 amnesty also didn't, well, there was an improvement. People came forward. But we need to be very cautious to say, let's not then penalize those who are compliant by giving amnesties. So people were still hesitant. Some did come, and we have written off. What I like about the amnesty last year is we then rode on it to encourage taxpayers to come forward and engage with us. And so a number engaged. Some were saying, I know I owe you, but I can't afford. And yes, we wrote off the penalties, but the actual principal debt has not been written off. But what we like about it is we have it in our information. We are in contact with taxpayers. We are negotiating with them on terms, and it has helped us to that extent. But in terms of recovery, it was very little. What we are actually hoping for is that the taxpayers have this debt sitting on their books. It was only 1-to-1, and it's still at a 1-to-1.
Right.
Now there's clarity with the recent judgment.
Yes.
So it's a much reduced figure, and we are hoping that taxpayers can take advantage of this and come forward and pay, because it's a much less figure than they owed in.
Let's move on to the issue of broadening the tax base.
Yes.
And one would think that the intermediate money transfer tax, which is very unpopular, has helped you in expanding the tax base. But I get the sense that in certain instances, like CSO businesses, for instance, people have stopped using the mobile applications to do transactions because they are running away from this, I will call it the IMTT. Are you finding that this has become counterproductive in a way? Do you think it's expanded the tax base, or people are finding loopholes to get away from paying tax via their phones?
Okay. You seem to have diverted to the IMTT, but I'll start from widening the tax base. When we talk of widening the tax base in tax administration, we are saying, are we getting as many people that are supposed to pay tax paying? We can widen the base by change of policy, and this is what the minister did by introducing the IMTT. Why is that? Because we realize that our economy has informalized. So our normal tax structure was not capturing the many taxpayers that were active in the economy. So I support the IMTT in that it allowed us to capture the informal sector, which was not otherwise covered by our tax mix. I talk of tax mix especially for Zimbabwe, with pride, because having the experience that I have from other countries is maybe income tax and pay as you earn, and that's it, or VAT, and that's what they are focusing on. But we are at an advantage that we have a mix of different taxes that then tries to spread the tax burden. When IMTT came, it was to help mobilize the revenue from the otherwise informal sector, which was no longer contributing. Yes, they contribute from VAT, because when I go to buy a bottle of water or whatever vatable products, as an individual, I'm paying. When the business at CSO goes to buy their inputs, they are paying. But there was so much that we were not capturing, because our current income tax requires that whoever is earning an income should do books and records. So I think it was a good transitional step to get us to mobilize more revenue. On the issue of the mobile now, yes, this has been made difficult because we are actually operating in a formally multi-currency, so the dollar is available. And this is actually making it easier for those who want to avoid the mobile money. But this is a system that is used especially where the economy is informalized. particularly in East Africa, they've used mobile money so much. They've developed quite ahead of us. So yes, I look at this as a transition into the development of our economy, hopefully to a stage where we can formalize and businesses grow. And with more foreign direct investment, we are hoping that our economy at least will get to that level of formalization. So yes, IMTT came at the right time, managed to provide revenue and revenue for the government, but also to give that space for the economy and for the country to have resources to address the many challenges.
Let's move over now to you have this big project, the Beitbridge redevelopment program. How far is it, and what are the intended objectives of that project?
Okay. The project is actually meant to bring, if I use the word sanity, to the border post, to bring ease of doing business. What it provides is it gives us leeway to segment our travelers. We have people that are coming as tourists. We have individuals that are driving back and forth from South Africa home. We also have businesses that are importing goods in tanks, and buses carrying people and others. So it will provide lanes which will then give us the room to develop strategies to address the different. If I'm dealing with a tourist, it's just stamping their passport and making sure that they don't have anything that is dutable. Those who are coming through buses, we know the nature. Those who are using the malumes, we have a lane for them. And the commercial traffic, they need to park their trucks. So it will provide that both on the import and export side. So that's the ease of doing business that we are driving through the development program. It has started, as you know, the groundbreaking was done in 2018 in July by the president.
Yes.
We have signed documents, and I think there were just some few delays, but the project has started. And work has already, the laning has already started. And we are hoping that it will keep on track to deliver, especially for holidays. It becomes very difficult for us. This is why we are going the automation route. As you may be aware, during the festive season, particularly starting from 2018, we introduced the ETIP, where taxpayers could apply for their temporary import permit even before they come to the border.
Yes. Yeah.
We are also working on the commercial ETIP. So these are strategies that we are putting in place, and they are part of the bigger ASCUDA upgrade. ASCUDA is the system that we're using on customs, and we have so many other programs that we are developing to make importation easier for us, particularly through the Beitbridge border post and others, to make sure that we introduce the ease of
You're
business.
doing that with buses. I mean, how practical is that? That the buses should send a manifest before 24 hours or so before they arrive. How practical is that to do?
The pre-clearance that I talked about earlier is a widely used strategy for trade facilitation, and it only requires for that transporter or importer to have registered on our system. The manifest, the passenger manifest, is used by aircrafts as well, where they have to have a record of the people that they are carrying. Their passport numbers, and it helps us risk profile. And our risk profiling looks at a number of things. We know there are buses that are used for smuggling from our intelligence. So we will know that, yes, the bus is coming, and
be ready for it.
Yeah, and be ready for it. But also for facilitation, because we don't want this bus, which is compliant, to come and wait. So we would rather they log into our system, make their declaration, the nature of their passengers, and when they arrive, it's just a question of stamping their documents and they are going.
Is that happening right now?
It's not happening as such because not many of our taxpayers or travelers or bus transporters are automated as yet, but this is something that we are promoting. I think you have seen the media. It is to the advantage of those that are genuine compliant travelers who would want to spend as little time as possible
at the border.
At the border, yes. And one of the things that we are doing, particularly on the commercial side, is when the person pre-clears, they give us their manifest. When they come, we are developing now the dry ports where we don't want to keep them at the border because we have constraints in terms of infrastructure. We can't put as many staff in at the border post. So we want to move them inland and examine their consignments there, or even at the premises of the taxpayers. And we have this program which is called the Authorized Economic Operator Program. And we encourage many to register for that. What it says is you come, we investigate or check, analyze your risk profile. If we are happy from an income tax, customs, and we qualify you, you will just go into the green route, as we call it, and we can come later on as a post-clearance verification.
Wherever you are in the country.
Yes. For transit traffic, as you know, we do have the electronic cargo tracking system, which we are using, where we seal the consignment and we unseal it when it goes out, whether at Beitbridge, at Forbes or at Chirundu, so that, and we give number of days for you to transit. So we will not have to keep the trucks for as long when they are actually not supposed to be staying there. So all these are strategies that we are putting in place to facilitate trade and make business as easy as possible. And we are in the process of developing some of these processes in our automation.
So we tended to focus on the IMTT in terms of broadening the tech space, but there are other strategies that you're working on. Do you want to get into those?
Okay. We, as tax administrations or as economies, we look at what is called the tax gap. And when we look for strategies to broaden the tax base, we are either looking at the policies, which is what we were discussing with the IMTT, but we also have the administration gap, where we are saying the law is there, but you are not capturing all the taxpayers. And this is an issue. So our administration gap, though we haven't done the study, is quite big because not many people are compliant. Our strategies to widen the base is to ensure that we bring as many taxpayers into the tax base, especially those who are not compliant. So the strategies that we have, realizing that we have a lot of these in the informal sector, is that we have to go out to educate the taxpayers, to encourage them to come on board. I think I spoke about the compliance strategies earlier, but we also, particularly with the informal sector, we address them more in groups. Like the small businesses, we have to go out, and we've partnered with the Small Enterprise Ministry. And we want to address the taxpayers in their different sectors, in their associations, and ensure that they understand so that they comply. But we are looking forward to the policy focus, which looks at a simplified tax system. And this is either a presumptive tax, which we have for a few sectors, or a turnover tax, which is just a simple, maybe 3-5% of your turnover, but if we can establish the turnover. So those are strategies that then help us to widen the base. But mainly at the moment, we are using our education, we are ensuring that taxpayers know what they are supposed to do, but we are also using the enforcement, where we actually come after you and we prosecute. Yes. Okay.
We're talking of IMTT, which is the technology side. Is ZIMRA ready for a world of cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency, yes, I think I understand it's doing well in Zimbabwe. But what I haven't heard is the regulation of it, because this is under the Reserve Bank. But from a tax point of view, our law says if you are involved in an activity for the purposes of earning income, it becomes taxable.
Okay.
So if we come across, as we're doing our audits and our compliance work, if we come across somebody who is in the business of buying and selling bitcoins or whatever, we tax them.
Okay.
So they are treated like any other income. If it is for capital, it also is addressed from a capital investment or capital investment portfolio or whatever. So the issue is, yes, we are ready. The law is very clear.
Okay.
The information, and what I like is that Africa has become aware of these issues, and there's a lot of education that is going on. And we are working with organizations like the African Tax Administrators Forum, which is a body of African countries, and we're giving a lot of education, also promoting the automation and exchange of information, which will help us in getting this information. In terms of readiness, we are ready when we get the information, and this is why systems like the tax revenue management system that we talked about will become handy, because we'll then get that information internally or externally.
You're a person of faith,
Yes.
and the job that you're doing is a tough job. It's a dangerous job. What role does faith play in your job and in your life?
Okay. This is going to be very personal, because a lot of people have asked me, why did you leave the IMF to come to take this job? I was at the crossroads at the IMF. Crossroads in the sense that I was looking forward to another contract, and I was approached to come and serve my country, to come and rejoin my organization. I had to pray. And I could share with you scriptures that spoke to me and led me to
Please do share one scripture at least also.
Okay. When I was approached to take this job, I asked the question, will I have the freedom to run this organization as I see fit? And yes, I got that assurance, but I knew from the challenges that I was hearing that it was not going to be easy. But, and I started praying and fasting. And the scripture that I got is from Isaiah 45, which says, I'll go before you and I'll open gates of iron and break the bars of bronze. I didn't know what it meant then. And as I came in, I faced a lot of challenges. And there were times when I was almost giving up and saying, no, but this is not what I came for. But each time I've had my bishop come to pray with me in the office, Bishop Ncube. I've had a number of Methodist ministers support me at home. I've had colleagues pray with me. And we have a group as the executive. We encourage each other with devotionals. And there are times when I was faced with the most difficult situations and I didn't know what to do. I would receive scriptures from my home fellowship group in Ghana. My son would send exactly the same scripture. A friend would give, encouragement. And for the week, you'd see that God is speaking something. And this has taken me and carried me on. And I don't think I would have survived if I didn't have God. And if I didn't believe, because there are times when it gets tough and you don't know what to do. And my faith has been my pillar.
Are you in a good place right now?
I am. I am, not that the issues are gone, but I think looking back at the experiences where I've come to a point that I didn't know what to do and God has come forward. And always, just this week, we were talking with one of my managers and I was expressing frustration. We all do.
Sure.
And because the first day I started work, I was in her office and I was sharing with her. She reminded me, she said, I thought you said this is a call. And I said, oh, yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's a journey that I'm walking. Things will never be easy. I'm
If it was easy, a lot of people would be doing it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm sure the nation is...
I don't feel special for doing it. I feel I've got helping me to do it. I think that's the way. I look at myself, very vulnerable. I've never felt like I was anything special. But when I then look back at some of the things that I've done, I've said it can only be God.
So you are successful. You've done amazing things. You've had I think, a great career on the continent, in the region. In a way, people would say you have broken the glass ceiling. What message do you have to young women looking up to you as a role model, to young female entrepreneurs battling with the world that's dominated by men? What message do you have for them?
Okay, I actually don't feel like I've broken the glass ceiling, because when I joined the Revenue Authority, I was in the company of a balanced team. And the Revenue Administration career has a number of women. But yes, from a societal perspective, we are a patriarchal society. We are raised in an environment where men are seen as the rightful owners of certain privileges and roles. But the message I would give to women out there is, it's a perception. The world out there is ready for anyone to take on. I haven't seen anywhere in any of my achievements, if we call it that, that I've had to look at myself and say, am I fit because I'm a woman? I've always felt I can do this because I'm able to do it. The only thing that I can say differentiates me is, do I believe I can do it as a person? So the message that I give out there is, you only have to believe. The world is out there with equal opportunity for anyone who believes in themselves, rather than looking at the perceptions. But I'm not belittling the challenges which are coming from the external, which will look at you and say you are not the right person.
Yes.
But I'm saying, even if there are those pressures, it's how you receive them. Yes, I've had challenges where people challenge me because they feel I'm a woman. I face them as a person and with whatever I have. And it's in...
How do you deal with them? The challenges where they come in because you're a woman?
I look at them in the position that they are and in the position that I am. What does this position, what authority, I don't want to use power, but what authority does this position give me? I'm the one in this position, and I'm responding to this person from that authority rather than from my person. So even if it was a man in this position as a Commissioner General, just like Mr. Pasi was, he would use the same authority, not the power, not the gender, to respond. And as a result, I look at whether it's the laws, the policies, or the procedures that I'm dealing with, and I will confront you with what the law says. And I'm not going to do anything different just because it's Trevor who is wearing pants and not...
Right.
Yeah. So I think this is why I emphasize the issue of perception. A lot of times we step back because we feel we are not. But if we know we can do it, and we believe in ourselves, and we get that encouragement from others who have done it, we go for it. There is a world out there waiting for any person to conquer it. Equal opportunity. But yes, challenges are there, and we have to face them as such, like any other enterprise that you want to get into. If you feel you can run a business, don't look at yourself that women can't run businesses. It's about you having the capacity to do it. There are men who have failed in business. There are men who have failed in management. And there are equally women who have succeeded and received opportunities. I think the challenge is on these opportunities being made available, and our children, especially the girl child,
Yeah.
being aware that there is a world to conquer and I can do it.
Fantastic. A special segment of this show is where we ask you, what books are you reading? You are a busy person. What are you reading at the moment, and what books have had an impact on you?
I will say, I will make a confession. I'm not a good reader. I don't find time enough to read. But when I came to join ZIMRA, I was aware of the challenges of taking this organization. And my son bought me a book, which apparently I also got as a gift, a welcome gift from one of the organizations. And this book is The First 90 Days.
Right.
I've used it as a Bible because I read it. I have it on audio because I would listen to it even when I'm driving. It gave me such insights to strategize, to realize the challenges that I have. So I'm using it from when I got it in 2018. The other book that I am reading, and I'm using as a handbook, and this is how I read. When I face a challenge and I'm saying, okay, what can I read? I have 2 books that I got from my nephew, who is a pastor in Botswana. He gave me books after sharing a very difficult experience, and one of them is Leadership Pains by Samuel Chand. And it just makes it clear to you to say, if you can't overcome the challenges of a certain level of leadership, then that's the limit. Realize that the higher you go is determined by the challenges that you face. It articulates the pains of being a leader. And then there's another book called Faith in the Marketplace by Bill Winston. I think it speaks to me from a perception that there are certain people who may feel that there are jobs where faith doesn't work. But our faith works in every situation, including the marketplace, in business, in leadership. And I've used those 3 books as my handbooks. But there is a book that it's so thick. I got it from my son, and I've dreaded to look at it. But I'm really excited to start on it. And it's Straight from the Gut by Jack Welch. I'm really looking forward, because this is somebody who has been there and in big companies and the like. So that's my reading. I'm not a reader, but I found so much insight into reading some of these experiences, but more from faith by books. Like I said, my devotionals, I've got devotionals that I use on a daily basis, and they actually come through and give me, wake up at 5:30, use the first 30 minutes for my devotion. 6 o'clock, after listening to the news, I go for a bit of exercise on the bike, and I get ready for work.
Awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Commissioner General Faith Mazani, thank you so much for your story, which I think will inspire quite a lot of people there. Thank you for the books that you've shared. It's a tough job that you're in. You're a person of faith. You're clearly making big strides and making a change. You've shared your books. I'm going to share my book. I am reading this book at the present moment. It's called Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. I fully recommend it. It's an inspiring book, and it teaches us that we are all different and we need to take time to understand each other. So to you at home, in the diaspora and all across the continent, we thank you for watching. We suggest that you please subscribe to the channel. Remember, In Conversation with Trevor is a weekly show. If you subscribe, you'll get notification every time we upload a new program. Thank you so much for your support. See you next time.